I wish the world could stay just like it is now, peace and quiet.
You know about the Baha'i faith? Baha'is are trying to change, man. We're trying to bring everybody together and love each other instead of hating and fighting each other.
You know, this is the first religion that says that your color, my color, their color, all colors are supposed to be together. You know, Harold and I we like each other because we're people, you know.
Yeah, well, you know what the Baha'is are saying? Baha'is are saying that a new messenger has come from God in this day to unite all the races into one race of people, you know, the human race. And he said it's time for us to all live together in unity and peace and happiness. You know, everybody's got to come together today.
If everybody in the United States come together, it probably work. It will work.
It should work.
That's the reason we're telling you, letting you know, you know, so that we try and tell everybody about the Baha'i faith.
It would be kind of nice if people could learn to respect people's rights and do what they feel is right, I would think.
This film was made at a Baha'i Youth Conference. It is about these young people and their faith, the Baha'i faith.
We thumbed up here from the base.
We had a kind of an empty car. We only had 2 people. We picked up 2 tractors all the way out.
Yeah.
Remember Somewhere Balance? Somewhere the unity and the diversity. Well, that's the type of theme I want.
It's so chaotic, you know. You get these letters and what can you convey in a letter in terms of Baha'i? Because
I try.
I mean, what can
Colored ink and
oh well, maybe
our friend is Baha'is.
I've changed the back. Oh, they're not even lead riders. They're probably triangular.
You got Brooker. You know who hugs the most? You and Gordon Late, man. Getting hugged by Gordon Late and by Phil Lucas, man, is a transcendental experience. You don't gain your breath for about 45 minutes.
Have you looked at the schedule? It's really neat because Rahia Khanum's going to speak 3 times. Like she's speaking this afternoon, tomorrow morning, and Sunday. And Dan Jordan's going to talk tomorrow, and it's really going to be neat.
This is the day whereon it is incumbent upon everyone that seeth to behold, and every ear that hearkeneth to hear, and every heart that understandeth to perceive, and every tongue that speaketh to proclaim unto all who are in heaven and on earth this holy, this exalted, and all highest name. Whose name? What name? The name of your Lord, the name of Baha'u'llah, because this is the name that must sink into the hearts and that must penetrate the consciousness of every single soul on earth. And as you know, the House of Justice has placed before us what I consider, in my humble opinion, to be the single most challenging responsibility, namely, taking the message of Baha'u'llah, the awareness of the coming of the Promised One, to every human soul on the planet.
Baha'u'llah is the glory of God. And it's Arabic. Baha'u'llah is a messenger of God for this day and age. And his message to all of mankind is unity.
Every prophet of God comes with authority, and we as Baha'is accept the authority of Baha'u'llah and obedience to the laws that Baha'u'llah has taught, which are the same as the laws of the prophets of old, but are addressed to this period in history, that obedience to those laws and trying to manifest them in our lives is what can bring about this unity of all mankind.
I think it's the question of purpose, that everything in our universe, even the things that man himself has created, that ultimately there's a purpose for that thing, even down to the minutest, tiniest thing you can conceive of. And what Baha'is believe and what, Baha'u'llah has said is that our purpose as human beings, as living, thinking, eating, so forth things, is to know and to love God. And this is what our life is based upon.
God is sort of, just a loose term. You can't really define it. And there's a big gap, between man and God, but the only way you fill it is by, just living your life. And that striving to fill it is the only way to happiness, to true happiness.
When Baha'u'llah, the manifestation of God, tells us that we must unite, we must love each other, we must have harmony, he's not just talking, he is telling us a law. And when we break that law in the world, we come to the brink of another atomic war. And when we break it inside of our nation, we're living in chaos. But we never seem to think that when we break it in our personal lives, we're making ourselves and our society sick.
When I met the Baha'is, they seemed so, close together and unified, and I felt warmed and happy with them. And they were sort of people, they were so different from all the rest of the people that I'd met. And that's what made me join the Baha'i faith.
My whole life, I had just dreamed of this, and I always believed in the oneness of mankind, and I didn't see any conflict between the prophets of God. And I knew then I found the beginning of the answer to my life's quest.
When the people of the world see the blacks and whites together, coming together in peace, it sort of like stimulates the whole world into coming together. The vibration is just more or less go all the way around the world, and people can feel it. Say, wow, man, it's been cold as ice for over 200 years, and all of a sudden they open it up, it's a new day.
He has come on the cloud, can't you see the new day? He has come on the cloud, can't you see the new day? He has come on the cloud, can't you see the new day? The glory of God. There is only one God, can't you see the new day? There is only one God, can't you see the new day? There is only one God, can't you see the new day? The glory of God. All religions are one, can't you see the new day? All religions are one, can't you see the new day? All religions are one, can't you see the new day? The glory of God. Mankind is one, can't you see the new day? Mankind is one, can't you see the new day? Mankind is one, can't you see the new day? The glory of God.
We as youth or young people do have hang-ups. We're trying to blame the old generation, but we have to be honest with ourselves. We have prejudices, and it takes effort on everybody's part. I observe young people in the area that I live, and they talk about the way that they're treated by the cops, the police. And I can't take a side, because as a Baha'i, I believe in the whole and not the part. The cops are right, and the youth are right. But what they have to do is recognize this in each other and build together. And if I step on either side, I'm bringing about dissension.
And this is a divisive society, as you know. Everything is splintered into smaller and smaller pieces. And I strongly advise you to just close it all. Say, look, I'm not interested in splinter groups. I'm only interested in oneness. I'm only interested in solving the problems of the world in a way that is the only way left, and that is through equality and love and cooperation. If they say, well, where do you get that? Say, you get it in the Baha'i faith, and I've got it, and I'm not going to change it for what you got.
Our high school went on strike. Evanston High School, and most of the colleges were on strike. I think we were one of the few high schools that did. And I went on strike too at the time. I wasn't real sure how I felt about the war and everything, but I guess the same thing went into me. You know, thinking about it now, mass hysteria, because all my friends said, come on, let's go. And I said, you're right, we should. You know, and, well, it's, everyone's striking about little things all over. This is the way I feel. All over the world for their own little rights and for all the different rights that are going on and that people want. And just little pockets like that aren't doing any good, and they won't. And it's just not the answer in the Baha'i faith and what, you know, the teachings of Baha'u'llah are.
I think that it's a very hard thing for the young Baha'is, perhaps, to have the courage of their convictions and say no by getting involved in the heat and furor, this stampede that's going on, however superficially beneficial it may seem. Usually what people strike for and what they ask for and what they have demonstrations for have a lot of good. Maybe it's 10% good, maybe it's 90% good. It isn't always wrong. But the method is not the Baha'i method. We are building something that we think will solve the problems of the world. And if we rush off and put a brick here and a plank there and a scaffolding there, we're not going to get our own work done, you see. But it takes great courage.
People will always say, what are you doing? You know, and this is what the world is crying about. This is why students are marching in the street and so on. Because people are concerned, people are sensitive, and the world we live in is growing darker every day. And the reality of the faith is in not so much what we say, but what we do and what we live. You know, if the teachings of God are to be relevant to mankind or to have any meaning at all, it has to be shown in our actions. And people have talked a lot about peace, but peace is not something, you know, you go to a corner grocery store and buy 50 cents out, you know, and you can't buy a quarter's worth of love and, you know, or any of these things. These are things that come with practice, that come with sacrifice, that come with building. And, you know, all the marches in the world are not going to bring peace to the world. What will bring peace to the world is that people learn to accept each other as human beings, learn to trust each other, to work to cooperate together, to build together.
We don't go to other people first and say, well, you've got to do this, you've got to abolish your prejudices. We're trying to build, first starting with ourselves, to cleanse ourselves. We're commanded by God to purify ourselves of our own prejudices first. And then to manifest, to demonstrate to other people in our community and through our individual actions this purification that we've gone through. Then we can call, if we're truly peaceful, peace isn't made by making war on warriors. Peace is made by peace. And that's a really deceptive thing. Peacefulness is peacefulness, you know. Gentleness is gentleness, and that's what leads to peace and gentleness. And this is the message of Baha'u'llah.
Love now, love is then, love will be when, love was before, love is forever. Time is a one-time thing, this is the song I sing. Time is a one-time thing, this is the song I sing. Time is now, time is then, time it will be when. Time was before, time is
Baha'u'llah, being the manifestation of God that he is, possesses naturally universal consciousness, and whenever we start talking about a worldwide change, you know, as people do in revolution, in order to accommodate that change, you have to have a universal perspective. You know, like revolutionary and political leaders don't have a universal perspective, man. They're limited to wherever their country is or wherever their state is, you know.
That's right.
Everybody is saying, you know, like
Change.
change, you know, but it's not really change, you know, like even the political systems. You know, the Baha'i faith is, number one, it's complete change in that the approach it has to all the problems is spiritual. You know, like that is a complete change because everybody else is into a material solution to all the problems. And the political aspect of the Baha'i faith, that is its administrative order, is complete change, whereas it takes out the alienation process that's in old world politics, you know, like the nominating and I nominate you over him, and that whole thing. It turns people off immediately.
It's the approach towards unity that people say they want, and we finally have it. How amazing can it be for people to be building, people all over the world, building a government, a world government based on spiritual values. It's such an amazing concept.
This new world order is nothing, you know, really strange because, like Christ talked about it, the only prayer that Christ left for us was that thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And Baha'u'llah has brought the way for the kingdom to come to earth. And this is, you know, he's the shepherd, and this is the day that the sheep of many folds will be gathered under one shepherd.
You know, I found this when I was in Vietnam, when I was in Honduras and Central America, that the beautiful acceptance of Baha'u'llah has opened the hearts of the people to people from other countries, and the same with Americans who are, you know, many of them very provincial and prejudiced people. And the Vietnamese people embrace me as a brother, and the people in Honduras, and I, of course, embrace them as a brother. And this is what's meant by the raising up of a new race of men, people who see all humanity as their family. And this is what was foretold by all the prophets of God, by Christ, Muhammad, Buddha. This is the glorious day, the promised day that all of us have been waiting for.
They're in a confusion because the old people tell us, forget the old ways. You can't live in a white man's society with the old ways. So what do? The white man's society don't want you. Man, you're just right in the center, and you don't know where you're going, why you're going, or anything.
A lot of these spiritual qualities are hidden in the wise old Indians that we should search and get into their hearts to bring out their spiritual part of life which they once lived, and they'll have a feeling that they found the answer that they've been waiting for a long time in the Baha'i faith.
Baha'i es una fuerza que dirige la vida en una dirección positiva, en una dirección de acción.
Tal vez esto de la religión Baha'i es lo más grande que nos pudo haber sucedido a los que somos discriminados en los Estados Unidos, como pueden ser los cubanos, como pueden ser los mexicanos. Yo pienso que si en realidad la religión Baha'i algún día llega a cundir en todos los Estados Unidos, en todos los estados de América, si todos nosotros luchamos, si todos tratamos de impartir lo que hemos aprendido, si todos vamos a juntarnos, a unirnos para poder hacer eso, la religión Baha'i va a tener un fin pues muy bueno.
And perhaps when the day comes that the American Indian, the African villager, the Asiatic villager has come forward in the service of the faith, and his voice is more often heard in our councils, then perhaps we will begin to get a glimmering of what the outline of the future world order is. But it is not what we have, neither what our civilization has, nor what we have as American Baha'is, nor what the Persian Baha'is have as Persian Baha'is. It doesn't exist. It has just put its head above the ground. In our administrative order is the germ of the world order.
flowers in the sun.
They come to us and they sit down, you know, in the meeting and they'll listen and they'll say, well, wait a minute. You guys are talking the truth. Why won't my minister tell me this thing? Or why won't they tell me this in school? Why don't they tell me this someplace else? Nobody is really telling them the truth, and they know it. You know, like when you hear the truth and a lie, most people with any kind of sense can really judge.
Baha'u'llah